Oh yeah, I'm back again. Next one, we're talking about Bhava Yarupata, considering appearances, or what I call testimony of reliable person. Bhava Rupata means acceptance of testimony of reliable person. A similar practice that has been recognized in later Indian philosophical system known as Attovadesa, or primary source of information about science and text. So we are not to simply accept, summarize something accepted as true, while as yet unproven. We make surmises frequently concluding that something is true. We may not have the facts or information. So such conclusions are easily shaped by prejudices and are to be questioned, and even when recognized authority asserted them. Okay? For example, if you go for multi-level marketing, and attend those talks, you will see that there are some figure that appear in the this called event, and they swear that this particular product they use, one I encountered about Taiwanese product. They say after using it, then they got this Chinese say the 气孔流水, they push up all the toxin out from their body. Right? They swear in the name that this product is workable, and then it's so good, it's so fantastic, it can cure all kind of sickness. This is called testimony. Somebody come out and make a judgment on that. This thing really work. So it's called testimony. So even this type, we just have to question mark whether these are all acting figure or not. So all this for us to analyze, is this the truth? Right? Next one, Samano no Garu. This is our teacher. This term means of respect to our teacher, implying the acceptance of a statement of prestige and reputation of person uttering it. Especially me, I giving you lecture. All these things, you have to double check yourself. Okay, not all the thing I come out, you have to accept it. Everything is true. Okay, so go and reflect on it and check on it whether I'm speaking the truth or not. Okay, so as a teacher, we also are not 100% is speaking the truth. Okay, so you need to go and check and reflect on it. So Bayarupata takes into account the intrinsic quality of the speaker. This ground is based on the prestige of the speaker. So especially, one thing I want to tell you, mention about monks. Not all monks are 100% can be guarantee speaking the right Buddhist teaching. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I come across after many visits of all these various temples, some you have to question mark. Okay? Don't just blindly accept it. Some or two, especially in the Abhidhamma. Okay? Not everything you have to accept it, every word, because you need to counter check on it. So we are not to accept something because it's an axiomatic that is unquestionable, apparently self-evidence or seeming true. I mean, we don't just give respect to the teacher, but also we have to question mark it. We cannot just because he's of status of high practice, that's why we need to respect him, and take every word from him is a truth. So to question the axiom seems to go against the reason, but may be the highest reason. So many things one accepted in society as axiom gives such as separation of races, male superiority, that the earth is fat, etc., are given way to questioning, resulting in the progress of society and culture. So this is another thing we have to guard ourselves. Don't just simply somebody teach you because of his high prestige and high attainment, then you must just blindly take it. Okay, all must accept it with question mark. Next one, Takahetu, mere logic. Takahetu means by adhering to logic. It may be expandable to mean accepting a belief on the basis of reasoning or logic. Logic as a methodology practiced by the teachers of Indian philosophy in order to demolish an opponent theory on the ground of its compatibility with reasoning. So as I told you, a very good example is the fire. I mean the smoke. Smoke, say away, he said, this is the logic. Because there's smoke, fire. Okay? There can be other thing, smoke does not necessarily means from fire. It can be some other. So spacious reasoning exerted ideas which are possible, seemingly correct or logical, but with investigation are found to be erroneous or false. They can be what we regarded as half-true. So political campaign and religious debate often employ such assertion. Okay? That's why in politics and in religion, you see such thing appearing. Okay? So chick is another one, not to be 100% acceptable. Okay? Except with question mark. Okay? Next one, Naya Hetu. Naya means either standpoint or inference. Naya Hetu is logically acting theories of reality on the basic standpoint or inference. This method involves taking a present causal occurrence as the standard and inferring that it would have been held true in the past and will variable hold true in the future. So we are to check the biases or prejudices that arise from a long study of a teaching or subject matter. So this you can find it in many of Indian school. They treat this as inference. I mean, these people have this kind of capability of understanding that you are other people cannot. So they say that they are the one that can see the truth. So you believe in them. Like the Jains also have this, okay? Inference standpoint. Okay, this is another good one. Speculative opinion. Or akara paritaka. Akara means reason. So it implies the presence of a reason for reaching a conclusion. So in India time, many school, some school, they make it into a big thing that true, they have no truth in it or no what you call substance in it. Make it until such a thing that it becomes a truth. Okay, so this is called speculative, and dependent on reason for reaching a conclusive conclusion in commendable, but reason is unqualified. Can be either objective or subjective. So all these speculative, they carry a big question mark on both sides. So our Buddha, objection of Buddha was to rely upon subjective reason. Our Buddha, when it comes to speculative thing, he won't answer you, especially when talking about soul. We should not be swayed to accept ideas simply because of the ability to expertise of the exponent. Having advanced academic degree does not automatically make a person authority in any field other than the field or he or she study. That's why when you have a degree, you're only good for that particular thing. You are not supposed to be good at everything, okay? So don't just because he has a degree, he is expert in everything. So there's a reason for doing speculative opinions. A variant translation of the term is a conviction that results from thinking about a theory of acceptance that the proposition is true because it agreed with a theory that one is convinced of. Right? When they get knowledge, when they sleep, this particular God will come to them and let them have a dream and talk with him in the dream. So they use this speculative thing as a form of teaching to the other followers. So the criticism of grounds have together that is that one cannot have perfect knowledge of a theory by consideration of some reason or by reflecting on it. So both share the weakness of basing on conclusion on subjective consideration. I mean, things that cannot be measured, cannot be conceived, and they try to make it as true as possible for you to accept it. But to some people, they love it because it's a awakening for them that this one is it feels so good that they think that is the truth. So the final consideration question, even one's teacher. So according to Gautama, one should not accept a teaching simply because one's teacher advocates it. Buddha always never force you to accept his teaching as true. So in all tradition, this is the most difficult. Latents and pulpits are the strongest barriers to questioning. So in other religion, they try not to ask you as follower to question them because all these things are formed from their so-called to attract you. So all these are so-called speculative view. So Kalama Sutta, your studying this must remember the 10 grounds. The 10 grounds adopted by various religions as a basis to determine the truth of a doctrine based on authority and reason. So Buddha prescription for determining the truth of a statement. So this is Buddha way of checking. Standard adopted by the contemporary religions for commanding the fate of their adherents. So those who are following all these other religions, they are basically following this 10 thing. To know things that are unwholesome, wrong, and bad. Instead, adapt those wholesome, right, and good. So final decisions up to one intelligent understanding and critical judgment. So none of 10 point is a substitute for direct experiential understanding of the truth. So in Vimangsaka Sutta, Buddha has said to the monks to use critical judgment before accepting any doctrine in this sutta, even the state enlightenment of the Tathagata. So Buddha even mentioned enlightenment is also up to you for judgment. Okay. So Maha Parinibbana Sutta. This is the last sutta. It's later compiled by the monk when Buddha passed away. It's directly from the discourse of Buddha, from senior bhikkhu of a monastery, from erudite bhikkhus proficiency in Dhamma, Vinaya, and Abhidhamma, and resident in a monastery. From a erudite bhikkhu proficiency in Dhamma, Vinaya, and Abhidhamma. I mean, here Buddha say about when he passed away. So how you authenticate this is a Buddha teaching. So if you are lucky, born during Buddha eras, directly from Buddha. Then the next, when Buddha not around, the second check is when a group of senior monk in the monastery, they should able to authenticate whether this teaching is the teaching of Buddha. These are all called senior bhikkhus. So if you cannot find all the senior bhikkhus, the next one is from erudite bhikkhus proficiency in this Dhamma, Vinaya, and Abhidhamma. I mean, you only find a few monks in the particular temple as authority, whether this teaching is true. And finally, is when, let's say you are in state, okay, America, down there, they want to learn Buddhism. They only can find one monk in a particular temple. So you have to depend on this particular monk for authenticate this is the teaching of Buddha. So the Buddha last message to the Sangha for determining the authenticity of a statement claiming to be original teaching of Buddha made by person who claim to have heard it. That's why after Buddha passed away, you see the Sangha split. Even at the first Buddhist Sangha, some later monk who were not invited or who wouldn't want to be there, he said, these 1,000 over monks that authenticate the first Buddhist Buddhist teaching were not true, because he said he listened differently from Buddha. So that's why the science split, and then until now we got three traditions. So even our Theravada cannot 100% to be pure. So as a scholar, you need to self-check yourself. Okay? You don't just simply one sutta. You check earlier one and later one. See what there's. You can see a lot different, especially the earlier one different from the later one. So we look further. What is the uniqueness of Buddha's teaching? In the case of the millionaire Upali, a follower of Diganta Nataputta, the Jains, so upon hearing the Buddha's sermon, wanted to switch his faith to Buddhism. But Buddha cautioned him his position to make a thorough investigation before making the decision. Say, just don't abandon your Jain's leader. You make sure you know Buddhism well before you convert yourself. So Buddhism is no faith for blind faith, bigotry and dogmatism in religious system. This is a very, very standing point against other religion. Other religions is based on all these three things. Does not demand unquestionable fidelity from the followers. Buddha never ask you, you die, must follow me. Okay? Buddhism, you come and see for ehi So ehi means to oppose and be seeing the meaning, openness for investigation. So pachatam vinitabu vinuhi is to be attained by the wise that each for himself. So when you realize Buddhist teaching, you are a wise person. You are no more the kind of worldling. So Buddhism is a teaching, a religious system meant for and appealing to the intellectual, saturated with the spirit of free inquiry. That's why in our modern set to say it's more towards right and riches. Right? The Buddhist actually is philosophy. It's for you to integrate into your present life and to find a way out of suffering. Right? That's why Buddhism, I don't know what you think, but when you do practice on Buddhism, you will find that you should have less problem and peace of yourself, and your wants are getting less and less, right? And you have to worry that the number of days left for you to practice is no more in years. So like us, me old man, the next 10 years whether still around or not, it's a question mark. So we need to eagerly, earnestly practice it, acquire as much as we can. So recap of Kalama Sutta. The sutta deals with three matters. Intellectual appeal of Buddhism. That's a very important aspect. The ancient non-Buddhist method of discerning the truth and the corresponding Buddhist method. The 10 aspects are explained. And how does a monk ascertain whether a doctrine is correct or incorrect according to the Buddha's teaching? And then we need to talk about what this Kalama Sutta is great at. Buddhism stands out as a compare with other religions due to this feature. Very important, Buddhism encourages free and open inquiry of doctrine and tenets. That means the doctrine. Demands a critical approach before accepting principle. Reject dogma and authority as a basis for reposing the truth in doctrine taught. Reject anti-critical faith and bigotry as a big attribute of disciple. Undervalue the right and riches as a path to liberation. So these are the recap of the what in Kalama Sutta. First one, report or revelation. Sava, the Vedic book recorded the word of Brahma as reported by previous generation. So Vedas cannot be questioned. They contain the truth and must be believed. Okay? And next one, questionable is tradition. Paramapara. Even the knowledge other than Vedas need to believe it is God handed down from one generation to another, and from generation handed down to the next generation. Hearsay, itikara. Because of doctrine is heard from a source, it must be believed. This is another questionable one. Hearsay. Authority of religious text. Pitaka Samapada. Statement in the scripture or not to be questioned. This especially cannot question religious text. Appearance of teacher taken as testimony via rupata. Accepting the testimony of reliable person leads the truth. Don't just because the teacher look nice and then his testimony is the truth. And number 6, idea of this is our teacher and must be right. Samano no guru. Going after the prestige of teacher and believing that he utters the truth. So that's why when you are following a monk or whatever, always step out to make sure that this have to be checked and whether he's speaking the truth. The next common one based on reason and logic. Made logic. Takahetu. This means that if the teaching is logical, then it can be accepted. And these are those schools in India during that time, they use this as a testing to make you, guide you, lead you to understand by doing this logic, this is the truth. Inference, Naya Hetu. This is taking a present occurrence as a standard, extending it for future and past occurrences. And the next one, speculative opinions, Akara Parivitaka. It means depending on the reason to come to a conclusion. If the reason is objective, there may be no harm, but when it's subjective, it can be wrong. So speculative, not necessary, will lead you to the right one. So it's more for capturing your faith with them. Delight in speculative opinion, Diti Nija Kanti. This means that accepting opinion because it agrees with the theory of one belief, this is subjective. So when one something and the thing interests you, then you feel that is of your kind of, let me your sign of prejudice that you like this teaching, that you believe this very well. So we come to end of Kalama Sutta. So Buddha has given a clear guidelines to identity of the true doctrine. Discuss the statement right with references to the Kalama Sutta. Buddha has given a clear guidelines to identify how he find the true doctrine. So you explain on this statement based on the points in Kalama Sutta. It's an essay question.
Okay, no problem. I'll do it.
Pek Leng okay lah. Sister Pek Leng do lah. If she.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Then this sister Sumita will present her presentation. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon to Brother Lau, brother and sisters in the Dhamma. Now it's my turn to share my homework. This is the tutorial topic given by Brother Lau based on past year question for the year 2012. The title is Discuss the contribution made by Colonel Henry Steele Alcott and Anagarika Dharmapala to the revival of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. So before we elaborate on the contribution of both personnel stated, just have a brief overview of the Sri Lanka Buddhism history. So we knew that Around the 3rd century before the Common Era, Araha Mahinda, the son of the Indian warrior King Asoka, arrived in Sri Lanka, and he had propagated the Buddhism in Sri Lanka as the first Buddhist missionary. And then, with the help of all the Sinhala kings and the nobles, Buddhism had established in Sri Lanka, where the kings built, maintained, and endowed many shrines and monasteries, and they intervened to establish order to prevent schism within the Buddhist community. And the nobles and commoners also have lavishly given their support to the Sangha. But then, as time goes by, in the 5th to 11th century in Common Era, there are political unrest, there's decline in Buddhism. Later on in the 16th century, in Common Era, there were Portugal, Dutch, and British colonization. Their entrance into Sri Lanka had built their own missionary schools and churches, where they introduced Christianity in the form of Protestant Catholics, and they have Wesley Christianity and so on, and where they have started to evangelize the locals through education and given a lot of opportunity for them to gain high posts in government if they are Christians. So a lot of non-Christians were suppressed. So it is then many local, especially the local Sinhalese monks and some Buddhist enthusiasts, they started some revival movement of Buddhism. During the 19th century in Common Era, there were a series of public debates between Christian priests and the Buddhist monks, among which we have the famous great debates in Bandura, where they do a hot debate over the truth of Christianity as compared to the Buddhism, and the Buddhist side had won. So from this on, this kind of debates already draw a lot of attention from the foreigners and even within the locals. And then it attracted many Hinduists to lead the Buddhist revival movement in Sri Lanka and then spread to other countries. Out of which, in the 1880s, Colonel Olcott had founded the Buddhist Theosophical Society in Sri Lanka. Under his leadership, it led to the formation of many Buddhist societies and learning centers, publication of many Buddhist literature, and they have fought and won over the right to have Buddhist marriage register allowed, not in the church, but outside the church. And there are a lot of translation of Pali canons into English and German, which enable the Buddha's teaching to be spread globally. So now we'll take a look at the first person to be mentioned, that is Colonel Henry Steele Olcott. Colonel Henry Steele Olcott is an American by birth, but who has spent his early life as a very successful farmer and a colonel of both Army and the Navy. He was the first well-known American of European ancestry to make a formal conversion to Buddhism. He was first drawn towards Buddhism by Dr. J.M. Peebles' report of the Bandura controversies regarding the great debates about Buddhism and Christianity, which he happened to read in a public library in America. Then he had inaugurated the Theosophical movement of religious comparative studies, for the quest of truth in all religion. He had founded the first Theosophical Society in New York back in 1875. In December 1878, he moved its headquarters to Adyar, India, with Madame Helena Blavatsky, another Theosophist. Sorry, there's a typing error. And devoted himself to ameliorate the socially discriminated and downtrodden low-caste masses of the Indian society. In 1880, Colonel Orchid and Blavatsky arrived Sri Lanka to gain a first-hand knowledge of Buddhism. He had immediately publicly embraced Buddhism and had worked for the upliftment of the Buddhists in Sri Lanka. Under his guidance and leadership, and with the support of all leading Buddhist monks, the lay Buddhist leaders in Sri Lanka at the time founded the Buddhist Theosophical Society on 17th June in the year 1880. At the time Colonel Orchid arrived at Sri Lanka, there were only 3 Buddhist schools against 805 Christian missionary schools. 12 years after the establishment of the Buddhist Theosophical Society, the number of schools had been increased to 47, and later on in 1940, the total had raised to 429. So Orchid and his supporters went from village to village appealing to the people to donate subscription for the maintenance of these schools, and funds were readily forthcoming. Besides establishing Buddhist schools in the form of Buddhist education, during his time in Sri Lanka, Orchid strove to revive Buddhism within the region while compiling the tenets of Buddhism for the education of Westerners. It was during this period that he wrote book The Buddhist Catechism in 1881, where he summarized the Buddha's teaching in a clear and concise format, laid the foundation of the Buddhist schools, some of it is still being used today. The Buddhist Theosophical Society had published a Sinhalese newspaper, Sarasavi Sandaresa, in 1889 to propagate Buddhism, and later on its English supplement, The Buddhist, and now become a monthly of YMBA Colombo. Colonel Orchid then designed the Buddhist flag, which is used all over the world as a symbol of the religious unity. The flag consists of the 6 colors said to be in the aura of the Buddha. He also represented the Buddhist cause to the British government and found redress for the restriction imposed against Buddhists, such as the prohibition of possessions, Buddhist schools, and improve the financial administration of the temple's properties, and so on. Colonel Orchid also contributed much to the Zoroastrianism and Hinduism. His most valuable written work, especially for the Theosophical world, is Old Dairy Leaves, without which the title has been known of the history of the Theosophical Society. Colonel Orchid is still remembered fondly by many Sri Lankans today. The date of his death is often remembered by the Buddhist centers and Sunday schools in the present-day Sri Lanka, as well as the Theosophical communities around the globe. A stamp was issued by Dudley Senanayake and then the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka on December 9, 1967, to honor Colonel Orchid on the 60th anniversary of his death. So this is a brief description of what Colonel Orchid had contributed to the revival of the Sri Lankan Buddhism. Another leading figure that we are going to touch on is Anagarika Dharmapala. Anagarika Dharmapala, formerly known as David Vivekarana, is the son of a leading businessman in Colombo who had migrated to the capital city from Matara in South Lanka. He was brought up in an affluent family and under Buddhist environment. He had received education in the Christian missionary school, but conflicted with the school authority in the process. He had close contact with the Buddhist monk and was influenced by Colonel Orchard's Buddhist revival movement. The speeches and activities of Colonel Orchard greatly inspired the young enthusiasts. In 1883, consequent upon a brutal assault on a Buddhist procession by Catholic mob at Cartagena, Dharmapala left his Catholic school and in the following year became a member of the Buddhist Theosophical Society in Colombo, of which his grandfather was the president. He is a leading figure in Sri Lanka independence movement against the British rule. At the age of 20, he became a confirmed celibate and assumed the epithet Anakarika, which literally means the homeless one, whereas Dhammapala denotes the protector of the Buddhist doctrine. Anakarika Dhammapala left employment and took up residence of the British Theosophical Society headquarters. He made a start by accompanying Orchard on his popular lecture tours in the country as his interpreter. Then he became the closest associate of Colonel Orchard and an outstanding orator who had spread the Dhamma in the international arena. He was not only a Buddhist viralist, also a social reformer. He ridiculed the local Hinayalists who had habitually adopted the Western lifestyle, including the conversion to the foreign religious belief, adopting their names, costume, etc. Instead, he promoted the Sinhalese dress, set a number of local viewing centers. He campaigned vigorously against alcoholism and the assumption of animal flesh. He popularized the English journal The Buddhist in India, America, and Australia. As an affluent orator, he undertook lecture tours to Japan, Europe, and America, had spread the Buddha's message internationally. He is noted as the first global Buddhist missionary. He had been invited to participate in the Parliament of the World Religion as the sole representative of the Theravada Buddhism. His oratory and appeal of his international forum and forceful lectures had captivated foreign audience and laid a tremendous impact on the American and eventually earned for him an international reputation. Dhammapala was practically Orchard's protege, and they pushed an inclusive interpretation of Buddhism that merged in Eastern and the Western ideas, mainly secularism and egalitarian thought, imported from the scientific revolution and the French and American revolutions. Forming a school of thought has come to sometimes call the Buddhist modernism. This modernism not only assimilate Western philosophies, but also Western methods of institutional development, public communication, and technology. Buddhist modernism is characterized by a rationalism and openness to science. His pilgrimage to Bodh Gaya had erected a remarkable landmark in his career, where he had initiated a vigorous movement and set up the Mahabodhi Society to recover the possession of the site of Bodh Gaya from the Indian government and in Hindu control and return it to the Buddhists. He has successfully raised the fund and a variety of resources to build Dhamma Rasika Vihara in the year 1920, Gandharvati Vihara in 1931 in Sarnath, Varanasi. He kept a close and cordial relationship with Venerable Pripasaran, a pioneer in the revival of Buddhism in Bengal and India. In 1927, he bought a temporary residence in London for housing the London Buddhist Vihara, and in 1931, Dhammapala was ordained as a bhikkhu by the name of Venerable Sri Devamita Dharmapala and received higher ordination. but his health had declined and passed away in 1928 of August, where he couldn't fulfill his aspiration to live as a bhikkhu. Along with Colonel Henry Steele Olcott and Madame Helena Blavatsky, the creator of the Theosophical Society, Anagarika Dhammapala were the major reformer and revivalist Sinhala Buddhism and an important figure in its Eastern transmission. They had awoken the Sinhalese Buddhists and had led many Buddhist leaders enthusiastically partook in the reform and revival of the Buddhist education in Sri Lanka. They have contributed to the success in the revival of Buddhism in Sri Lanka and paved the way to enable Buddhism to enter the platform of the missionary at international level. Their Buddhist Renaissance movement had laid the foundation of the modern Buddhist education, and their effort will be remembered. That's all I can do. Thank you.
Okay, great. So you all can use this as for your revision. Sister had done a very good job. Today we can do until here. So I see you next month.